So when we assess the offer, we can flag any sort of big concerns that we have with not just the cost of works, but where we see that works are being under-considered. Obviously, in flagging that, it's useful to developers, because the earlier something's brought up, the more mitigation can be done around it, the more we can discuss with developers and DNOs and TOs and other sort of industry operators, like, are there solutions to this, or is this just like a sort of no-go area and there's nothing that can be done?
I am Abdullah Mohammed. My position here, Director Power Systems and Design within Blake Clough. Today, we are covering the topic related to the Gate 1 offer and Gate 2. And this is a part of the process for connections. And welcome my colleague Joshua Morgan, join me today. He is one of our Grid Connection expert and also project delivery.
Thanks for having me. My name is Josh Morgan. I work in the grid connection side of things. A lot of focus on CP 2030 at the minute. Just happy to have a chance to chat.
So what does Gate 1 and Gate 2 means in reality?
So Gate 1 and Gate 2 is a shift, right? So Gate 2 is what we think of as a normal connection offer. So you have a point of connection, you've got a list of works that need doing, and most probably, I guess, a cost and a connection date. Whereas Gate 1 is almost a downgrade of that offer. And so we're moving from a situation where everyone would just get a Gate 2, so everyone would just get a connection offer, to now when you apply, there's a chance that you get allocated to Gate 1 because there's not enough strategic capacity in the grid, right? So they've decided where they want solar, where they want BESS, and they've given capacity values to that. And so if you don't meet certain criteria, the capacity values are one of it, land rights is another one. If you don't meet the ability to sort of get that, then you go to Gate 1. So your offer is indicative. So you're not really in a queue, you're just kind of in like a holding pool almost, where you can then reapply to get to Gate 2. But you don't have any connection works really associated with it. They'll give you an estimate of these things, but it's not worth anything. It's not a contract and you're not guaranteed a connection.
And what's the key difference in terms of like when you said, okay, just for clarification between when you have an offer on Gate 1 and then when you secure offer on Gate 2, what's the key, let's say, high level difference?
The key difference is you won't connect if you have a Gate 1 offer. So you have to have a Gate 2 offer in order to have a connection.
Well, I can understand. I mean, from this one is Gate 1, where you have this initial offer, and then you need to connect or deliver the project that you need to go to Gate 2.
Yeah.
But that means what are actually missing in Gate 1? Why Gate 1 cannot guarantee the connection?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So the key thing with Gate 1 is it doesn't have any sort of transmission impact assessment, and so that's where Gate 1 and Gate 2 come in, right? They're transmission driven. And so if you have a DNO connection, your DNO connection might be like a lot more accurate. So the DNO can give you some costs and give you when they would expect you to connect. But because they haven't run it up the chain, because they haven't run it to NESO, to NJET, to SPT, then they don't have any of the understanding of how that connection is going to impact transmission. And so as a result, your costs and connection dates are all indicative. And so it's based on what the DNO expects they're going to be able to deliver to you. But you don't have any sort of any concrete costs, because where your point of connection is might change, right? So again, we see it a lot where current connection offers are getting, they're applying to go to one substation, but then because the GSP is oversubscribed, a new GSP needs to be built, and so all of this sort of like delays the whole system.
What is the main reason why Gate 2 was introduced?
The main reason was the connection queue kept growing, and so NESO had other ways of sort of they expected it to sort of stabilize, but just more and more projects came in, and so it got to the point where I think we had 4 times as much energy as we would need by 2050 sitting in the queue and waiting to connect. And so a lot of these projects are or were considered by NESO to be zombie projects or unviable, and so connections form came in to get unviable projects out of the queue and accelerate us to clean power by 2030, right? So getting more solar in, getting more batteries in, getting more BESS in.
It seems like, okay, based on assumptions, okay, but you should have some level of terms of how valid are these assumptions. So what do you think in terms of how let's say practical or realistic the assumptions that are based in offer based on gate one?
I think it's difficult because obviously we're going through the process for the first time, so I think it's difficult to say whether the assumptions that made are realistic at all. They're based on what the DNO knows they can deliver from their grid or their network side, but in terms of what the transmission network is going to look like in 6 months, or what the plan is in 6 months compared to what it was 6 months ago, is going to be completely different, right? Part of what this whole operation is them redesigning the transmission network, they're redesigning their planned works. So they don't want to build as many GSPs, which is good because they're expensive and it puts costs on customers. And so instead they're looking to streamline all of this, but it creates massive uncertainty at the minute.
So I think there's probably like a clarity issue around like gate one, but if we see it, I think is what you are describing, like the developers see like maybe more likely as a bit optimistic around gate one.
Yeah.
If you cannot guarantee like with the gate one offer that you could connect a project, so is that because I'm trying to understand here in terms of like for the developers, for example,
Yeah.
what they need to understand about this,
Yeah.
And instead of just like you all the risk that will be shifted to the gate two.
Mm-hmm.
So what they are missing to understand as a developer,
They're missing how they impact transmission, right? So they don't have any attributable works, they don't have any cancellations, securities or liabilities. They don't have a guaranteed connection date because the DNO doesn't know when the transmission operator is going to be able to allow them to connect. So it's all these key aspects that they're missing. The offer's indicative only. It doesn't give them anything. It doesn't give them any sort of security. It doesn't give them any guarantee. And because the criteria for getting a gate 2 is based on these capacity pots, that's the big one, is unless these capacity pots change or NESO like update them and say, actually we need more solar in this region or we need more battery in this region, then it's possible that they'll have a gate 1 and they'll sit on a gate 1 and they'll never be able to strategically align to the Clean Power 2030 plan.
Good. And maybe let's go like deeper in terms of like focus more about the technical and from strategy point of view. Do you think the developers are doing enough due diligence and understanding the risk at the gate 1?
I think it's very difficult at the minute. So I think it's where we offer like a lot of support, right? So a lot of our services around gate 1 are assessing things early and trying to give those early sort of indications about whether or not they'd be able to connect. But I think I definitely don't think there's enough being done at gate 1 because there's not a lot of information about what's happening at gate 1, right? Like, so much of it is held up now by the work that NESO is now doing to reassess the transmission network. And until this first batch of offers goes out, until we know the shape of, what transmission works are falling away, what transmission works are enduring, and more importantly, what offers are going to be accepting their gate 2 offers and what offers are going to be just falling away to attrition, like deciding actually this gate 2 offer doesn't work for us, we have to pass. And that will obviously free capacity. But fundamentally, the chokehold is the capacity in these buckets and the capacity in these regions. And we need it until we know how that's going to shift, and we won't know until NESO publish their SSEP, so their Strategic Spatial Energy Plan. And once that comes out, then we'll be able to point a lot more to where there will be demand for solar, for battery, for wind.
What you're saying in terms of like, okay, when you are moving from gate 1 to gate 2, that's where the project really started.
Yeah.
So the gate 1, it is not really a real milestone, is more about point of start.
Yeah.
And then you move to gate 2, where the project really should start now. Yeah. So, and then what we expect like this is a different stage, and we expect like emerging of new challenges. So what are the key, let's say, technical and design issues or that could emerge at gate 2?
Yeah, so you're going to get your securities is going to be the big thing. So obviously you're going to have to place money against cancellation liabilities. You're going to want to start looking into designing your project like more seriously and getting that design signed off by DNOs, by NESO. So things like cable routes then become like a lot more practical because you know where you're going to be connecting, you know when you're going to be connecting, and so you can look at like building that out and starting to consider, do you have to cross a railway? Do you have a river crossing or anything like that? Are there any complications on the cable route that mean that it's not going to be as simple as just putting it in down a road.
Following this stage, I mean, for example, from the experience working with a client, so at this stage, I mean, how, let's say, serious that the developers, for example, need to rethink about this stage. So compared to the gate one, so can you give like advice about why is it very critical now? You need to rethink at this stage.
So at that stage, you have a connection offer, right? So you can start more practically planning. So whether or not you're a developer that's going to build or going to sell the project to someone else to build, but you can start looking at maybe getting ICP quotes in, deciding whether you're going to, and part of that is deciding whether you're going to deliver the contestable element of the works, sort of chasing DNOs a bit more on when the non-contestables are going to be coming in, keeping more abreast of the attributable works that you're being affected by. So for example, if there's new 400 kV substations or lines going in, making sure that you're staying abreast of the progress of those works with, I'd say regular calls, so sort of at least every 6 months with the DNO, with TOs, like ensuring that anything that would stall your project is being identified as early as possible. And that really is, when you get gate 2, that's when you can start engaging with that, because that's when they'll sort of start coming back to you with practical solutions and advice.
Yeah. So I mean, from discussion and like when you have a gate 2, it's like now you feel like you are more certain in terms of the project.
Absolutely.
But does that mean you are at the stage of like de-risking the project?
So because you have certainty that this is the connection offer you're going to get, if it's not viable at that stage, then obviously you can discuss that. You can look at solutions around that with DNOs, with the TOs, but you can engage a lot more, I guess, proactively, a lot more meaningfully with network operators, because they have certainty that you're looking to connect and they've offered you a connection, and you have certainty that this will be the offer that they're presenting you, right?
Yeah, but there must be like also like a new challenging as well. So, okay, we see like in terms of, okay, you are going to connect, it's more certain in terms of situation, but there must be like some technical and commercial challenges that could emerge during this stage. I mean, so okay, can you explain a bit? I mean, what are the key challenges in terms when you are like, okay, certain I have a get to offer, and then the project gonna start, and then what type of key technical and commercial challenge could emerge at this stage?
So I guess at that stage, and again, this is the first time we're going through it, so it's difficult to know because we're all going through it for the first time. But I guess at that stage, you can look at things like your financial investment decisions, getting that design focused on, so where your substation goes, what the substation looks like. I guess those would be the key challenges at that sort of time. But it depends how quickly your connection is as well, right? Like if you get an offer, you get gate 2 offer back and it's not till 2035, then you're probably going to sit on that for a while. But it's all sort of making sure you're still aligning with those connection milestones, and that, if you've got planning permission not submitted, that you go ahead and you submit that planning permission in line with maintaining your connection offer.
Do you agree that gate 2 offer is mainly you're shifting from the situation that uncertainty to a committed delivery?
So I wouldn't say committed, because you can still choose to walk away in the same way that you can choose with any offer. And especially with more distant connection dates, like that's going to, your, I guess, penalties for doing that are going to be less. Mm-hmm. So if you are having a gate 2 offer and it's deliverable by 28, obviously you're going to be a lot more committed than someone that's got a gate 2 offer that's in 2035. But yeah, I think it obviously depends on your connection date, which isn't known until you get the gate 2 offer. But you're absolutely right. Like you have to commit a lot more at that point. And I think when you're accepting those gate 2 offers, there's a lot more commitment there, because there's no, this offer's not going to change, right? Like there's no guarantee that you engaging with the DNOs is going to shift that offer to be more beneficial or to be better. So.
Yeah, and what's the biggest risk? I know that gate 2 is, one of the introduction to risk situation, but what is the biggest risk associated with the gate 2?
I guess it would be, so you become liable for cancellation securities. So you're not liable in gate 1. So if you decide to cancel your offer, there's no additional cost. Whereas if you've accepted a gate 2 offer and then cancel it 6 months later, you will incur some sort of cancellation penalty, which again, is in line with your S curve. It's in line with the information that you get in your gate 2.
So taking all these kind of things in terms of the challenges to the gate 1, gate 2, transition between gate 1 to gate 2.
Yeah.
So consultant like Blake Clough, for example, what kind of support they could provide in this to the client to facilitate or help the client for clarity for gate 1 or the realization of gate 2?
Yeah. So I guess we'll start with gate 1. So obviously when you get a gate 1 offer, it's important to understand like whether or not you could change it. So whether you can reduce your capacity to maybe fit in with what's available within the capacity allocations. So that can be things like our origination, our capacity scouting processes or services are really helpful there. And not just for gate 1s, right? But if you're just considering new projects in general, so a lot of origination now, you need to be aware of where capacity is. And then moving into gate 2, it's really important that you do due diligence on it, right? So it's really important that you get that offer looked at and examined, because if there's mistakes within it, you want to identify those as early as possible. They're really tight turnarounds, especially on this first tranche of gate 2 offers. They're going to be sort of 6-week turnaround from TOs to DNO, and DNOs are saying maybe as much as 4 weeks for you to examine the offer. So it's really important you get it assessed as early as possible, so any errors, any areas of clarification can be sorted out as quick as you can, and then you can accept it.
You mentioned about in terms of one of the key risk or key challenge for the gate 2, which is the commitment, and you said liability as well.
Yeah.
So can you explain a bit about how serious is this? Why consider it as a major risk?
Yeah. So the commitment, the liabilities, when you accept your gate 2 offer, you're saying that your intention is to connect, right? And so NESO and TOs will begin transmission works based on that idea that you are connecting. And so it might be that you've triggered or are part of a group of projects that have triggered a new substation that needs to be built, right? So that could be upwards of £50 million. And so it's a significant investment on NESO's part to do that work, to get the SGTs ordered and to start people building that new facility. If 6 months before you were due to connect, you decided to cancel, from NESO's point of view, they've already done a large portion of that work. And so you cancelling would disadvantage them, right? Like there'd be money lost because you were going to connect and now you're not. And so when you accept your gate 2 offer, you also accept your cancellation liabilities, which is it's a projection over from now until your connection date of 6 monthly increments. And it's the work NESO expects to do within those 6 months. And so if you cancel during that period of time, then you have to reimburse NESO for the work that they've already done, right? And so it's to make sure that everyone's...
But there are, when you talk about if you decide to cancel, so there are different factors, but from your experience, what's the key factor or major reason that normally the developers cannot cancel or cannot commit with the project?
I guess the key reason would be that the project stops being financially viable. And so that's why early due diligence is really crucial, because if you have a long cable run that is going to mean that your project financially can't work, then identifying that as early as possible means that your cancellation liability would then be as low as it could be.
Yeah, but how for example, Blake Clough, how can we help in terms of understand the viability of the project from the commercial and technical point of view in terms of?
So when we assess the offer, we can flag any sort of big concerns that we have with not just the cost of works, but where we see that works are being under considered. And so we can, obviously in flagging that, it's useful to developers, because the earlier something's brought up, the more mitigation can be done around it, the more we can discuss with developers and DNOs and TOs and other sort of industry operators, like, are there solutions to this, or is this just like a sort of no-go area and there's nothing that can be done?
So it's good, to engage at early stages
as early as possible,
but also what kind of help you could do also at later stage, for example.
So at late stages, we can again look at sort of private wire solutions, again speaking with DNOs and seeing if there's solutions that, so for example, if developers have got multiple parcels of land, whether or not we can sort of move certain points of connection or move cable routes so that they make a bit more sense from the developer's point of view, whether there's any solutions that we can help with in terms of getting that out and getting that going.
Do you have any idea about the impact of this introduction of gate 2 reform? So when you say, for example, in terms of how much capacity is needed, compare any result from NESO at the moment?
So from NESO at the moment, not that I know. I know that the goal was to get rid of about 75% of the connections queue. So obviously that's pretty significant. A lot of that is in batteries. So we're seeing fairly, not small capacity pots, that's not right, but smaller capacity pots compared to the size of the queue.
That's quite interesting, quite useful. So that means gate one offer is your project, okay, is possible, but gate two is your project actually delivered, but still there are a number of challenges, and that's where understanding the risk, understanding the potential, the challenge at different stage for different offer, and that's what I mean the team is helping the client on. That's a very important. Yes, will de-risk the project and also help the developers to understand the potential from feasibility of the project, but also the potential in terms of the risk as well. If you have one piece of advisor to developer, moving from or getting offer, gate one offer, and then moving from gate one to gate two, what would be?
Get your analysis in as early as possible. So get, whether it's doing something in-house or engaging with someone like us, but getting someone to assess what the queues are looking like currently, what they're expected to look like with like natural attrition, looking at the SSEP importantly and seeing about how those capacity zones are likely to change, about how the capacities are going to increase or decrease, or I mean they're not going to decrease, but whether the capacity is going to increase or in your area, or whether you need to sort of like look at moving from this project into other projects. But yeah, my advice would be get some analysis done as soon as possible.
Thank you very much, Joshua. That was very useful, very informative. And here at Blake Clough, we help our client to understand gate one and gate two. And if you are navigating gate one offer or transition to gate two, please get in touch. We have a strong team and a great connection. They help with a complex connection process. And also we have a design team and power systems team. They could help on the detailed design, and also they could help on the compliance studies. So please get in touch, and we are happy to support you and help you for the connection process.